Hello and welcome to another Looney Tunes commentary. If you're new to the channel, consider subscribing as it helps out the channel, and give this video a like if you do like it. So this is commentary for Bars and Stripes Forever, released in 1939. It's the 238th in the series, and it's co-directed by Ben Hardaway and Dalton. If you really need this on physical media, it's currently on the Golden Age of Looney Tunes Volume 4 Laserdisc set. So, and with me today is my good friend S.C MacPeter. Say hi.
Hello. If you took a look, you could have seen
we're watching
the antics of Alcaraz.
That's right. And we even see Rod Scribner animated credits, and you said you're going to point out some Rod Scribner animation.
This is one of the few ones where you can really see his style blending in. He doesn't really get any sort of star scenes in a lot of these cartoons. Not until he joins Avery or maybe his Jones cartoons, because he was also doing some scenes there.
I'm just admiring also this cartoon as well. Like, look, it's been no secret that I'm not being a fan of a lot of the output from Hardaway and Dalton as a team, but I did like Count Me Out. Or was it Count Me Out? I keep forgetting because some of these titles blend together. But what can you share about this particular cartoon? Any interesting trivia for us?
Nothing particularly about the cartoon itself, except maybe Rod Scribner's animation, of course. But I can, of course, share. This is I forget the name, but this is meant to be a parody of Hugh Hefner, I believe. And he's a very he was a big star in his day, and he also inspired Daffy's signature woohoo. And so I guess they're using him here.
Animation.
I believe this is Vonnie White.
I don't sleep all day myself. Insomnia.
Yeah, it kind of looks like it. Yeah, because I'm slowly learning the ins and outs of animation ID, if you will. So it's a whole lot of fun. But I've got to say, this one is definitely a bit more entertaining than the previous few Porkies that this team had done. Which is a good thing. I don't like to, I guess, be overly negative about directors. If they do something good, I will be positive about it. But yeah, it's just such a weird team up, though.
Yeah.
Of course, it's got Jailbird in there.
I wish I could state my source on this, but I swore I read somewhere that Cal Dalton was confused why he was paired with writers. Now, from cartoon research, Dave and Baxter had mentioned that Hardaway did all the writing and probably worked with his writing pals. Like I mentioned to you earlier, there was Jack Miller who wrote this. There was also Pinto Coving and Tubby Miller. Pinto Coving did the voice of Goofy, so you sometimes hear him in some cartoons. And
oh yeah,
this guy right here with the yep, that was a fun gag. I'll say that with the electric. Now,
for sure, because Peter Colvin, he was in Lone Stranger.
Yeah, so those three all came from Kansas City, and they worked with Walt Disney at one point. So they all knew each other pretty well, and and from Pinto Colvin's autobiography, he mentions that they worked on one that was eventually titled Hobo Gadget Man, and because it was something that they held dear to them, being hobos, it apparently turned out quite well to them.
Yeah, I've yet to see that one actually, but I'm pretty sure it's not long to go before I watch it. But then that's the beauty part about watching them all, because there might be a few here and there that you've missed, and it's like, let's finish it off. All
right, so this big 2 o'clock scene. This 2 o'clock scene here was done by Rod Scribner. You could see by the high eyebrows and the expressive faces, especially when you freeze frame this scene. You'll see, especially when he bounces back. There's a very good take in between the scenes that's really funny.
Love the animation on the clock. Where do they have these guns? That's pretty good. But it seems to me maybe that this duo, and we'll end on this once we have a discussion after the cartoon. But it just seems like that they probably just didn't get Porky. But when they did their own thing, it's not perfect every time, but it just seems more entertaining. Like maybe more inspired. I don't know. You know what this song is?
I believe probably Hardaway wrote it. Hardaway probably wrote it for this, and I believe this close-up is done by Rod Scribner as well as the next scene.
I was
Actually,
just about to ask
no,
you,
wait.
funnily enough.
I think this is Gil Turner. Gil Turner was a I would call him a very thin, sharp. He had a very thin, sharp look. He turned up around this time. I assume he was the assistant to an animator who left, and then became an animator at this unit, and stick to it Frizz Freely when he returned. So he takes up around here, and he does more animation on stuff like Porky the Gob.
Yeah, that wonderful one that I wasn't too impressed with.
Yeah,
but
the one that I got bored of while watching earlier today.
Yeah, it goes come again. Just what would they be come again? Like it's a prison. So I gotta say, yeah, this one, look, it really is
silly.
It's a little gem, yeah, definitely. And the picture quality, look, it's unrestored. It'll be funny. At the time of this recording, HBO Max are releasing new restorations tomorrow, so it'll be funny if this is one of them. But I tell you,
if it is, I'll definitely save it because it's definitely one that sure needs a better copy. Considering this is one of the public domain ones that doesn't necessarily have good copies spraying around.
Of course, like, but this one's actually not bad.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, this one isn't bad compared to how I've seen it beforehand.
And there's actually some repeated animation here from I'm a Big Shot Now, which is a Frizz Freeling cartoon. So just a few little shots of the police officers after I think this is the one. Mm-hmm. Oh no, not this one. I kind of forgot. I mean, I've watched so many already, but there's definitely a few repeated shots. I'll have to double check. But yeah, look, guys who are watching this, and gals, of course, let me know in the comments below, did you see this one growing up? I mean, at least this one's easily available, as you mentioned, Mr. MacPeter, that it's in public domain. But yeah, look, as this cartoon winds down, definitely stick around, folks, because we're going to have a discussion on the Hardaway Dalton team up, and yeah, we're going to have some fun. So definitely do not go away. So
that's not all, folks.
So what did you think of this one? Is it one of your favorites that the duo did?
It was certainly quite one of the better ones. It's definitely a better spot gag cartoon compared to saying like Gold Rush Days, which tries to tell more of a story. And I believe when it tells more of a story, it has it doesn't, when it tries to tell a story for what should have been a spot gag cartoon, it doesn't necessarily work. And
yeah, well, exactly.
And when rewatching that one and trying to compare it to this one, I think that the songs, whereas the song Gold Rush Days didn't really add anything, it was just more or less a bit of, I hate to use the term filler, but it kind of just was in that sense. It added nothing. It isn't really too entertaining to me. Whereas in Bars and Stripes, him singing about getting out of prison while also as using it as a way to sneak around definitely does bring a bit of entertainment.
For sure. As you know, I was not a fan of Porky the Gob, and I was really not a fan of It's an Ill Wind.
It's definitely very ill to watch.
Just something about him. Of course, and the irony, of course, was me having that commentary released on the US selection day. Of all the titles I could have had, of all the titles, but I assure everyone that was not intentional. But just a weird.
Well, certainly, I hate to get political, but it sure is windy and ill today.
Yeah, that's for sure. But
so, when watching
as an Aussie, all I can say is no comment.
When watching it, I could see that there was one big issue, is that the setup took up way too much time before they get into the house. It certainly felt a bit stretched for them to just bring the dog in. I think it would have started if they had started just fishing and then there was a storm and they hid in there. Sort of maybe like how they structured the Mickey, Donald, and Goofies at Disney around this time. Whereas in this one, sort of brings them to go fishing at first. As well as the fact that Porky's the only really compelling character. Dizzy Duck isn't really that interesting of a character. he's more or less just a loudmouth who should have just stuck to the one-off he was in. And I Want to Be a Sailor, because you can sort of see the connection, same voice, sort of the same design.
And she was an acrobat's daughter. There was very similar.
Yep,
probably the same duck, I reckon. Because wasn't Hardaway or
that was Freeling.
Freeling's team? Yeah, because Hardaway I think was in Freeling's team though.
Yeah, Hardaway. Writers weren't credited until I believe 1938, 1937. So you can't really tell who wrote what. We do know that that Ted Pierce was probably around by 1934, according to Bob Clampett. So maybe they were having sort of writing beforehand, but maybe just Gagman or something. I don't know. What I do know is Hardaway eventually became a writer after he sort of left his unit. I don't know why that was, but Tex Avery sort of got his own unit after him, of course. And
yeah, that's right.
And Hardaway certainly tried writing as if he was trying to write Tex Avery cartoons, but it's if he didn't know how Tex Avery did it, how he did his magic.
Oh yeah, I can definitely get that. Yeah.
You
only have to look at the Bugs Bunny cartoon. Sorry, not Bugs Bunny, the prototype Bugs Bunny cartoon. That's a Hare Hunt, Porky's Hare Hunt.
Yeah, which he probably did himself. Yeah. Bob Clampett talked about contributing some sort of gags to it that were left over from Duck Hunt that Hardaway didn't use. Hardaway apparently wrote the whole helicopter gag thing that I felt didn't work in it.
Yeah, it was not the best. And
I don't know. I think it was just the madcap personality they tried bringing out of it that made audience sort of compelled to it, as if they were looking to expand on that. And I feel that Chuck's Proto Bugs cartoons definitely capture that better, because they're not necessarily trying to bring out humor. They're trying to more or less experiment with the character of who he is, and they give him more of that wise guy thing instead of just being, as Hardaway said to Martha Segel, a duck in a rabbit suit.
Yeah.
So
that's the thing. Yeah, that's what first thing I noticed. Me and our good friend Fox and Fix, we watched that one together and did the collaboration, and we're just like, well, this is pretty much almost a so-called remake of Porky's Duck Hunt.
It isn't even that interesting of a one. I also felt
exactly. I
had to say, I feel that the Porky design that the Hardaway Hardaway era used wasn't a very nice look to it, and especially the head design for some reason doesn't really work. I would say, and I can't necessarily blame him. After Frizz left, since Frank Tashlin was requesting better animators, he got pretty much the big hot shots at Frizz's unit, except one of them, which was Cal Dalton. He got Robert McKimson or Bob McKimson. He got a up and coming Phil Monroe, and he also got Ken Harris, which left one of Now, I was talking to David Baxter, and he mentioned that Freeling often assigned Dalton these very high character shots or key shots in a lot of his cartoons. So he definitely valued him as an animator. So you can see why he was probably promoted to the co-director of sorts. And from there, the team of animators would have been Joe D'Amelio, Gil Turner, as I mentioned earlier, the credited Rob Scribner, who I've theorized might have been Dalton's assistant before he got promoted, and I believe Herman Cohen. And occasionally Paul Smith from Avery's unit would do some scenes. So that's what the unit looked like
to help out.
Yeah. None of the animators, in my opinion, except Scribner, were really outstanding, and Scribner wouldn't be outstanding until later on when he loosened up, as you could say it.
Oh, absolutely. He was probably one of the first animators I could actually identify, those Bob Clampett cartoons, because it's pretty easy to do. Absolutely.
Clampett was definitely one of the ones that saw Scribner as a big possibility of being a wild animator. And when watching one of the first ones where Scribner stands out, which is Wabbit Twubble, I wonder if sort of they were supervising the inking around this time, and if sort of the inker suppressed Scribner's drawings, and maybe Clampett left a note to directly ink them more to add more of the detail that he used, because for some reason that one sort of begins to show Scribner's abilities as in like in Tortoise Beats Hair, he also begins to stand out more.
Yeah.
So it's definitely one thing to consider.
For sure. Because we're also discussing in the commentary about how it seemed like that they didn't get Porky, but Count Me Out was actually, in my opinion at least, a decent one. I don't know. Did you catch that one as well? Did you watch that one? Yep.
Yeah, count me in on that one. I watched it. I enjoyed it a bit. I liked what they did, and I noticed that they were more into characters who they knew about for like who audiences would know for like radio or something. I think that they worked better with more or less ensembles instead of established characters. And so part of me wonders about Hardaway's writing it, because I always got the impression that he didn't understand character too well, which is why when writing for like Woody Woodpecker, I think he sort of fell down initially because he wasn't good at character, and Lance's studio primarily did character films. And
yeah, because I wonder if that's the part of that was because as we know, he made Buddy cartoons. Hardaway did a few of them, with the last one being Buddy in Africa. But Buddy, of course, had no character as far as I'm concerned, and so maybe back then it didn't matter.
There's definitely a change in writing style, and when Howard switches to Hardaway. Part of me considers Howard the better choice. He didn't make funny cartoons, but he was a really good writer who definitely wrote story very well. And it definitely didn't help on him that he had to write funny cartoons. I think had he stuck in the 30s and just write cartoons that were meant to be funny, he would have exceeded pretty well in that. Yeah. So when going through a lot of it, I noticed that Hardaway attempted to try and push gags without knowing how he was going to do them. And so part of me is to think that when he had help from his co-writers, like I mentioned, Pinto Covain, Tubby Millar, and for this one, Jack Miller, part of me wonders if they helped cleaned up what Hardaway's vision. And Jack Miller was a very interesting guy. He apparently did a lot of factory jobs and stuff like that. And now here's a story I just learned where one day he was working at the Kansas City film company with Hardaway and all the Kansas City guys that Walt Disney knew. You would occasionally fill as an actor during those times, and then one of them would be Jack Miller for something involving a traveling salesman kissing his wife goodbye. They apparently got a very pretty actress to play the wife, and during the recording, he didn't really know what was going on, and then after she kissed him, he felt the impact, and then he walked back to kiss her again, which wasn't written in. The director said cut, and they didn't realize till after they were done, you could say. And apparently that turned out that came as Jack Miller being his wife.
Oh.
So it's a very interesting story, straight out of a cartoon, you could say.
Oh, pretty much, yeah. No, absolutely. One thing I want to actually ask you was, I did notice in It's an Ill Wind, okay, fine, I didn't like it, but I try and look at the positives, and I did notice that there was a lot of animation in there that seemed to, I don't want to say lifted, but I guess maybe inspired by what Disney were doing with Pluto and Donald, especially that whole eyebrow lift. That
a lot of animators. I couldn't
tell. They were inspired by Disney.
I would definitely say Chuck Jones was very much inspired. While he didn't animate on this one, he was inspired by Fergie, who was a key Pluto animator, and did the famous the flypaper scene. And he also got Fergie to animate onto Itch's Own in 1958. I believe that's the title. And so they definitely, I think that was an animator that the Warner Bros. People respected a lot. So part of me wonders if they learned a lot of stuff from him, with particularly gained expression out of characters and reading them well. So I would think that might be what the animators were looking at with Porky and Dizzy's dog. As well, there was also some nice shadow effects in it, but and part of me wonders if that one was more or less a showcase for the animators more than writing in a sense. That's how you could look at it, for me at least. After Freeling came back, he probably finished a few cartoons, such as Confederate Honey was started by the Hardaway Dalton team, and the finished cartoon uses Elmer Fudd, but originally used the Egghead character that they used in Count Me Out. And my friend Derek S also suspects that from the sort of style that Porky's baseball broadcast has, and the fact that both Hardaway and Dalton are credited, that one might have been starred as them. I can't confirm it for sure, but it definitely is an interesting case to look at. I think that with the team, they sort of didn't. I think that if they had worked together better, and Dalton may have seen how Hardaway wanted to do things better, or vice versa, it would have worked better. Dalton would eventually go back to being a animator, and Hardaway would briefly be part of the head of the story department before he joined Lance. And it certainly comes off as if they were enjoying their time a lot more there. Yeah. So I wonder what exactly happened.
Yeah, that'll be interesting to explore, because I know I will be doing some sort of a Hardaway Dalton sort of a thing once I watch the very last one, and and maybe I'll invite maybe a few of you guys, and we can have a nice little group discussion. Now, what one thing we'll finish up on is, I mean, people will of course want to know who are you, of course, like what your expertise is. Did you want to give us a brief introduction on who you are, what you do?
I'm mostly just I'm from New York. I'm just mostly a teenager, and I mostly just try to look at classic cartoons and some new ones as well. I just mostly enjoy that stuff, and I like to talk about them. So I guess that's how it works for me. You can find me on
like an amateur historian.
Yeah, I guess you could find me as an amateur historian. You can find me on Twitter as S.C MacPeter, just as one word. You can find me there.
Yep, I'll put a link.
And that's mostly just who I am. You can find some fun posts there, occasionally the joke post with some cartoons that aren't very enjoyable. I recently watched all the 7 Arts, and tomorrow I should be done watching all the Patty Freelings. I just want to get those out of the way and watch all the 1960s cartoons, because that would be pretty easy for me to do. But it was not easy, and I felt sick after finishing most of the cartoons.
Well, spare a thought for me, because doing this series, it's going to get to a point where I'm going to reach the 60s, and the rest of them are just going to be those ones, and it's like,
you'll find some saving grace in a few ones. I'll say that at least.
Yeah, like Normal, I like.
I watched. Right? I remember the first one I watched when starting to complete all the 7 Arts I hadn't watched was Rabbit, which I enjoyed, and it definitely seems like sometimes they tried breathing life when they got bored, or if they had an idea they liked a lot. But otherwise, that's what I think was wrong in that case. But you wouldn't believe me if I told you who was first considered to work at 7 Arts as the main director. Do you know who?
No,
Bob
no.
Clampett.
Who?
They wanted to bring Bob Clampett back to run 7 Arts, and he was retired by this point. I don't think he wanted to do animation anymore, so he simply just said no. He just didn't want to do it. No. So then they got Alex Lovely from Hanna-Barbera. Then they got Robert McKimson to take his place. And that's just how that went.
Yeah, and we all know how that went in the end. And 7 Arts, the mark of quality, as I like to state every time someone brings it up. But we'll leave it at that for the time being. But we will bring you back. Are you happy to come back?
I'll definitely come back eventually.
Yeah, for sure. We'll figure out what to do.
If you want me to come back on anyone, just tell me which one. I'll probably do it.
Of course. And let me know in the comments below, guys, if you enjoyed this the discussion. But until next time, guys, take care.
Take care.
Bye.